And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantic.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
145!
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to SpaceX's second launch of the day. Yes, just a few hours ago, they just launched Falcon Heavy following a few delays, and now another Starlink mission, because who doesn't love Starlink? So I'll be your host for today's mission, Trevor Sesnick, and I'll be, here to watch this launch along with you guys. Alongside me today, we have two of our regulars. Before that, I see a bunch of 5x5s in chat. Thank you all very much for that. You guys know the drill. If you have any questions, oh my gosh, it's still the profile from the NSF Live. If you guys have any questions, make sure you tag us in chat at NASA Spaceflight, and your questions will pop up in one of our panels, and then we'll ask that to our experts. Now, speaking of our experts, first up we have Alex. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I should say Falcon-tastic, I guess, because it's a Falcon 9 today. After a Falcon Heavy, it's quite amazing. So many launches. Oh, there we go. I won a punt token for
Did
that.
you
But
win
yeah,
one or did it get
really exciting.
subtracted?
I guess we'll have to deal with that after the stream. We'll have to count them.
Yeah. And then bringing us these awesome live views, we have our Stubby nozzle enthusiast, Max. Max, how's the weather out there? How are you doing?
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to I must rather say, a damp evening, or now pretty much later night on Florida Space Coast.
Yeah, and it seems like the weather is pretty good. The launch mission execution forecast was 10% probability of violating weather constraints. And SpaceX tweeted about 20 minutes ago at this point that they were on track for tonight's launch. So, Alex, what is tonight's launch?
Yeah, so tonight we're going to see another Falcon 9 taking a batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. By the way, I just seen SpaceX saying that propellant load has already begun. So yeah, we're pretty much underway with the propellant load of this launch. And today's launch is not only going to carry those 23 Starlink V2 mini satellites, but it's also going to be having a return of the booster down to a drone ship, which a lot of you are going to have a lot of questions, just like we had with Falcon Heavy, right? About B1058. Don't worry, we're going to have all the time in the world to answer. I mean, not in the world, but you get what I mean. We're going to be answering those as well on this launch live stream as well. But one thing that is interesting that I will repeat also from Falcon Heavy is that this is the 300th launch for SpaceX. And now the thing that I said for Falcon Heavy is if you count any sort of complete rocket, with its first and second stage that SpaceX has made, Falcon 1, Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and Starship, then you get 300. But if you only count those that are capable of going to orbit, then one of those Falcon 9s actually was not capable of going to orbit. Neither it really even didn't reach, it really wasn't aiming for orbit. That was in-flight abort test with Crew Dragon on top. That was a really wonderful launch, by the way. And that mission, if you remove that from the account, then that means that today's Starlink mission, this Starlink mission, is the 300th. in that count. Now, of course, we also have the 2 Starship launches, which didn't they were in targeting orbit, but in theory, if they were to propose to do an orbital mission, Starship, in theory, it could have done an orbital mission, obviously with all of the failures in between and things like that, but it had that capability. That Falcon 9, though, it did not have that capability because it didn't have an MVAC engine on the second stage, so it couldn't have done any of that. With that out of the way, I guess I'll deal with what's the booster for this mission, because you can see there it's very sooty. It's going to get frosty really soon, probably in about a minute or so. And that booster is B-1069, flying on its 12th mission. It has done a lot of missions. Man, they're getting a lot of missions out of these boosters. So it started out with Cirrus 24, and for those that were worried about B-1058, excuse me, that was a very close call. For like B-1069 was almost gonna be what happened to B-1058. B-1069 on its first mission on Cirrus-24 also landed successfully. It was also grabbed by Octograbber after it already had landed. It was secured and everything with Octograbber, but bad weather meant that it basically had a lot of bouncing back and forth on the drone ship, and the booster had one of the legs actually a little bit damaged, and it was heavily damaged with the Octograbber damaging the nozzles on B-1069, and it almost toppled over, but it didn't. It just was leaning on the drone ship, but it never got to the point of where B-1058 got on its last launch. So thankfully, today we're gonna enjoy of this 12th mission for B-1069. Whole booster history is in the description, but I can run through real quick. Cirrus 24, Starlink 423, Hotbird 13F, OneWeb 15, Starlink 5.3, SES 18, SES 19, Starlink 5.6, Starlink 5.12, Starlink 6.9, and Starlink 6.28. With this, Starlink 6.36 being its 12th mission. So there you go.
Yeah, so I guess that's actually an interesting thing to discuss, and it was the lessons learned from this booster, according to one of SpaceX's VPs, that made them decide to work on these self-leveling landing legs. And those landing legs, they claim, would have prevented what happened to B-1058. And it sounds like that was the only booster that wasn't retrofit, correct, Alex?
Yeah, or at least that we know of. Maybe B-1060 is also not retrofitted. We really don't know, right? That is one thing that I actually should probably stop and look through all of the turnaround time data, because there was at least a few of the old boosters where they took a longer time to turn them around, and that is probably because they were outfitting with the new systems to be able to do this self leveling. I've seen a lot of people confused, thinking that the whole self-leveling of the legs will completely make the thing go away. The risk is still there. It will just be more mitigated because the self-leveling of the legs just allows them to be able to properly go and have the Octograbber grab onto all of the 4 hold-down points on the booster. But still, a big wave can still sway the whole thing back and forth, That is still a risk, but it definitely lowers the risk to a much lower level.
Yeah. Well, with that, I'm going to ask a few more questions to our wonderful Mr. Evans out in the field. Max, 2 questions in one for you. First of all, I know you're Mr. Stubby, so is tonight Stubby? And then second of all, what trajectory are we expecting this vehicle to fly tonight?
So tonight's Falcon 9 second stage is not configured with the Stubby nozzle, simply because of the performance needed to carry these 23 Starlink V2 minis to orbit. The main benefits of the Stubby second stage nozzle is cost savings and weight reduction. But with that being said, because you have a much shorter nozzle in vacuum-like conditions on the Merlin 1D vacuum, you get less performance out of it. So for payloads as this heavy, you need the full-size nozzle to reach Falcon 9's targeted orbit tonight. To answer the second question, Falcon 9 is heading off on a southeasterly trajectory tonight. So depending on how the weather is on the coast in, I guess, south of Cape Canaveral down to, say, Vero Beach or Fort Lauderdale, you should have clear visibility of all that is happening tonight. You can also see it north, but of course, since it's not traveling in that direction, you won't be able to see it as well or in full. Um, but yeah, because it's on a southeastern trajectory, excuse me, viewing down the southern coast of Florida's Atlantic coast should be wonderful tonight.
Yeah, indeed, and it seems like the weather couldn't be better. It seems like there's next to no wind out there, and I don't see any clouds, so hopefully it'll be beautiful for everyone.
Yeah, it's a nice change of atmosphere compared to how it was earlier in the day. We set up cameras on the launch pad for Falcon Heavy around 1 o'clock this afternoon, and it was absolute. It was chucking it down the entire morning. I mean, it is absolutely soaking out here. Like we are right at dew point, and I can see literal fog and dew right along the grass here over at the KSC press site. So it's very wet, very muggy, but the skies have cleared wonderfully.
Excellent. And there you can see on screen the weather forecast from the 45th Weather Squadron. And as you can also see in the event of scrub at this point, SpaceX does have another launch opportunity about 24 hours later at the same time tomorrow with that same 4-hour window. But the T-zeros are a little bit different. Um, but with that, here's a question for you, Alex, that I think is worth discussing based on some comments that Jesse Anderson, one of the SpaceX hosts, said earlier. They're asking, thank you for the coverage over the years. How close did SpaceX get to their 100 launch goal in 2023? And on that note, is this the last launch of the year, or is there more to come?
Yeah, that is very interesting because so this will be the 97th launch overall if you count Starship. If you don't, then it will be the 95th. SpaceX doesn't count Starship for some reason, but I do count it, and so this will be the 97th with excuse me, the 98th with a Starship, and the 96 without it. There we go. I was reading the current stats with Falcon Heavy. Sorry. So yeah, 98th launch with a Starship, 96 without it, and so the overall the overall thing with the next launch is that we don't really know if it's gonna be this year or not because again, as Jesse Anderson mentioned, she said that this was gonna be the last launch of the year, but then the one from Vandenberg, Starlink 7-9, that one is still like all of the hazard zones have not been pulled out. The website from SpaceX still says the 30th of December, local time at least. It will be the 31st in UTC. So I don't know. Maybe she meant the last from Florida because that's the case.
Um,
The last launch from the Cape this year.
and just as we were asking this question, actually, SpaceX just updated their website for 7-9. It now says SpaceX is targeting Tuesday, January 2nd for a Falcon 9 launch of 21 Starlink satellites, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, funny.
So,
They do it right now, just as I complain. I literally looked the website 1 hour ago before we went live.
yeah, so that means this is the last SpaceX launch of the year, which is kind of
Yeah.
remarkable if they managed to get 98 of these in. Very close to their 100 launch goal. Um, all right, let's go on to some of you guys' very generous support. Musical Wolves, a very regular face around here with the double header woo super chat. We're also very excited for that. Coco gifted a single Red Team membership, so if you got that, make sure you thank them and check out all of our awesome exclusive content. Alex with in memory of B1058, she will be missed. May she live forever in our hearts. Yeah, it sucks that that booster was lost, but it is remarkable how much SpaceX got out of that booster, right? Obviously, it was the life leader, so they got tons of data from it. Then also the 18 missions past Demo 2. So between those, I'm sure SpaceX will have billions of dollars of revenue. So definitely paid for itself. Robert with the $25 super chat. Best gift I ever got, a metal print from NSF. Love all day. Well, that's very kind, and I'm glad you got some of our awesome metal prints. The, photographers certainly appreciate that, and so do we, and thanks for your support. Musical Wolves with another question. Can Falcon 9 launch the V2 mini Starlinks to a lunar orbit? Will SpaceX put any Starlinks into lunar orbits prior to HLS landing or even after? Do we know the answer to either of those questions, Alex?
We don't really know. I don't even think they're gonna have any Starlink V2 mini satellites around the moon. That caught me a bit off guard because I don't think that's a plan from SpaceX to do any of that. I think that's way beyond what they want to do. They do have plans to offer capabilities. So this is gonna be a long thing to explain, but in very short terms, NASA is looking for what they call LunaNet, which is like a communications network around the moon. But that's later down the line, not for the first landings. It's gonna be basically towards the end of the decade, and it's I think different partners that they're looking for. Maybe SpaceX could try and get something out of that, but I don't really know, to be honest. And maybe by then it's not even Starlink V2, something custom made for NASA or something like it. Maybe.
Yeah, it could be like Starlink V5 or something.
Yeah, by then it's probably gonna be way more advanced.
Yeah. Brandon gifted 10 Red Team memberships. Remember, as always, if you got one of those, make sure to thank them in chat, as it really not only helps us do what we do, but also gives you access to super cool stuff that, hopefully you'll be like, oh, this is cool. The membership thing is cool. And we have 2 more gifted Red Team memberships. Deline gifted 1, and then Blushy Boy gifted 5 more. Tim became a member and became a Red Team member, so you also get access to those awesome behind-the-scenes content and all of that. Then Bideford, another regular here on stream, with another $25 super chat. Good evening, Trevor, Max, and the ever-present and awesome Alex. Thank you for doing both streams. Double hitter tonight with 2 launches is fantastic. It is fantastic.
Thank
But
you.
with that, Alex, we are 10 seconds away from a certain vent. What is that vent? What are we seeing here in 8 seconds?
Yeah, so that T-20-minute vent, that is the start of chill down of there we go, of the liquid oxygen line to the second stage. That is to condition the line to be able to load the liquid oxygen onto the second stage at full flow. I usually call it. It's basically full pressure, but it's also full flow, I guess. And yeah, it's just a little bit of flowing, a little bit of that oxygen through the line, the same line that they're going to be using, and throwing the residuals overboard so that they can chill down that pipe before they flow that liquid oxygen to full flow. And this is very similar to what we saw earlier today with Falcon Heavy, and it is also very similar to the OLM vent that we'd see at Starbase with the Starship. Also the same as the tower vent as well for Starship, because the Starship has 2 vents, the one on the OLM and one for the ship on the tower as well. So yeah, very, very similar to that. Same purpose.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be seeing that OLM vent and that tower vent at Starbase tomorrow. They have a road closure scheduled, and I believe we have an overpressure notice, correct?
Yeah, so I actually mentioned this on the sort of at the end of the Falcon Heavy stream. In between that stream and this stream, Mary got an overpressure notice, so we're probably looking at a static fire test of Booster 10 tomorrow. That's interesting.
Yeah, not that this is the Starship stream, but there's so much hype
Of
about it
course.
that we may as well ask. This is expected to be 33 engines or some subset of those. Do we have any indications yet?
I have no idea. I guess we'll figure that out tomorrow if they actually go through the test.
Yeah, indeed. Going back to some questions, remember if you have any, tag us at NASA Spaceflight. Austin is asking, can we agree stubby nozzle, best nozzle? I'm sorry, but I do not think we can agree on that. Clueless God is asking, thanks for the coverage, NS Spacer. Good to see a successful launch. although will we know more about what happens? And I think they were talking about the X-37B launch from earlier. So will we be able to track any of that as the mission progresses?
Well, if you have any telescope and you know where to point it to find it, maybe. But it's gonna be very, very complicated to actually track that kind of thing.
Yeah. Um, all right. Here's another question for you, Max. When will we see Starlink missions that have an RTLS booster landing? Do we have any updated timelines on that?
You know, I don't know any official information on that, or if any official information has been presented. But from what I've heard, that shouldn't be too far in the future. Potentially January or February is what I'm hearing. But of course, that's completely subject to change. Um, but given how capable Falcon 9 is, they could reduce the amount of V2 minis that they're flying in order to give the prop margin needed for a first stage booster to perform in PLS landing. Um, it could be very soon, or it could be 6 to 12 months away. We are really not too sure.
Right. And I think, one thing that may go into this is the octograbber on Just Read the Instructions from B1058 was taken off today, and presumably they'll do some work on it. So it's very possible that maybe we'll see some RTLS missions sooner than we would have, since they could be down a drone ship for a little bit. But we'll have to see, maybe SpaceX has a spare octograbber, maybe it's a small repair. We're not sure, but just something to keep in
Hmm.
mind.
And they could
Uh,
also one little note to that. They could also revert back to using chains just like they used before Octograbber, maybe for a couple of launches. Because right now, as the schedule is set up, I guess we can talk about that because we're going to cover the upcoming launches in the first week of the year. We will have the Ovson 3 launch. It's probably going to be the first Cape launch of the year. And that is currently scheduled for January 3rd. And it's going to be an RTLS mission. So they're not going to use a drone ship for that. They're not going to have the need to just read the instructions. And then after that, we expect maybe another launch around the 8th. There you go. Next to spaceflight. We expect some other launch around the 8th or so, which is also going to be the same day as Vulcan, but Vulcan is not a SpaceX launch, but need to remember. But yeah, the next launch after that may be around the 8th, but by then they can use a Shortfall of Gravitas, which is the drone ship that they are using on this mission. They have enough time to be able to make it come back, drop B1069, and go away for that other Starlink mission somewhere around January 8th, January 9th. That will be when it will be needed for that mission. If there's any Starlink mission after that, which we expect, obviously, it could be as early as 4 days after that, which is around January 12th. So just read the instructions wouldn't be needed until January 12th. Technically January 9th or 10th, which is when it will leave the port. So they still have like maybe 2 weeks to be able to repair Octograbber. If, and this is a big if they are not able to repair it, they still have the option to chain it and maybe do like 2 landings. For example, 2 landings will be 2 weeks. So if they need a month, then they could do maybe 2 landings with chains. And it's a bit more riskier, but it's better than not launching at all. Or maybe, having to reshape the whole schedule. Because the thing about RTLS landings, as Max mentioned, they also need to load less Starlinks, to be able to do the RTLS, because otherwise the Falcon 9 doesn't have the capability to be able to put 23 Starlink satellites into orbit with RTLS. It needs to offload a few of those. I don't know how quick they can do that. And so maybe they already have, payloads already stacked for upcoming Starlinks and just ready to go. I don't really have a lot of insight, but it may be a bit harder to reshape the whole schedule if they need to change it that way. It's easier when all of these launches have the same number of satellites.
Yeah, and am I correct in remembering that Starlink Group 6-36, the one that we're about 13 minutes away from, was one of the missions that we saw an RTLS option for on the permits with the FCC?
Yeah, it was Starlink 635. But again, I also mentioned this in a previous stream where they also had an FCC permit, a communications permit that covers. It's like a blank sheet kind of, or a blanket. It's a blanket permit. Excuse me. I was thinking of another term. But yeah, it covers all of the Falcon launches, including Dragon, including all of the Starlink launches, and it covers return to landings to launch site. It covers Droneship landings. It is crazy. And so they have that approved, and yet they're still doing individual. Like I've seen recently, I think from this week, they're still doing some individual per mission permits. I don't know if they're gonna keep doing that for the rest of all the launches that they have remaining, but yeah, we'll see. In theory, they could just do an RTLS even with this mission if they were, to offload some of those satellites from the fairing.
Yeah, awesome. Here's one that I'm gonna give for Max, since he claims that Vandenberg is on the worst coast. Are there any Vandy launches coming up that you're excited for?
To be completely honest with you, I'm not entirely savvy with what's happening over at Vandenberg. If anything, the launch that I was actually pretty stoked for was the recent Sarah or Sarah mission, however you pronounce it. But not off of the top of my head, unfortunately.
Darn, Jack would not be happy with that answer.
It's not a SpaceX, but I'm excited about Firefly.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Also, I don't know, maybe some action from the other folks on the West Coast. I don't really know who else, but maybe we see something about, I don't know, Vulcan from, maybe not a launch, but some hardware showing up at Vandenberg will be nice. Vulcan from Vandenberg. Hi, ULA, if you're watching. I doubt, but hey, gotta try,
Under the
right?
impression the question was SpaceX specific, so that's why I answered with Sarah. But yes, Firefly
Yeah.
with Alpha was of course very very exciting, but of course it was pretty nerve wracking and pretty saddening to hear that the second stage didn't fire as it was expected to enter its nominal orbit. But in the future, definitely Vulcan for sure. I mean, of course, we're super excited to watch Vulcan fly from here first. Hopefully on January 8th now.
Let's post.
I think Falcon Heavy from Slick 6 at some point. That would be pretty rad.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be very cool. I just want a Falcon Heavy in a polar launch corridor. I just want Jack to hear those words. I feel like he would be so mad.
It would be hilarious if Falcon Heavy were to launch to GTO from Vandenberg. Land the side boosters in Phoenix, Arizona, or something like that. Downrange.
Yeah.
No, we don't want that for the people in Arizona. Shout out to those that are watching from there. Just
Yeah.
because I mentioned it.
So speaking of Falcon Heavy, Blake is asking how many Falcon Heavy launches are planned for next year?
Yeah, so we have at least 2, and I say at least 2 because there's maybe a third, but that third is a CLIPS mission. It's a lunar lander, and lunar landers, well, as we've seen with some of the recent, some of the upcoming lunar lander missions, they tend to slip a bit more. We have the GOES-U satellite for NASA. That one it's actually for NOAA, but the launch is from NASA. So that one is currently scheduled to occur in April. That'll be the next Falcon Heavy mission. And then another NASA payload that I'm really, really excited about is Europa Clipper. And that's going to be in October of next year. And that'll be awesome. That will be using the same sat boosters that we saw landing today. So that's going to be cool.
But they'll be expended on that mission if I'm...
Yeah. It's going to be expended. But, it's for a good cause. It's science.
Sure. Yes, science, the Breaking Bad gif. I love that one. All right, so we're about 8 minutes away from launch. So with that, Alex, can you walk me through some of the events that we'll see over these coming 8 minutes, including engine chill and up to liftoff?
Yeah, so right now we are about a minute away from engine chill. That's when they chill down the oxygen turbo pumps on the Merlings. They flow a little bit of liquid oxygen, just like they did with the Stromback earlier at T-minus 20 minutes. They flow a little bit of that liquid oxygen through the oxidizer turbo pumps to be able to cool them down ahead of full flow of the liquid oxygen during ignition. Now we're then gonna see not actually see, but on the countdown process, they're gonna wrap up the RP1 load on the first stage. Then a few minutes later, we're gonna have a Stromback retract that we may not see either because the stupid launch tower. Which okay, it is fair that it is there, but come on, it's right in the way. For these Starlink missions, it's like, come on, could you move it away or something? But yeah, it's there in the way, so we're not going to see the Stromback retract, but the Stromback will retract about a degree. 1.8 degrees is the exact retraction angle, and then they're going to go into the final load of liquid oxygen onto the first stage and the second stage at T-minus 3 minutes and T-minus 2 minutes, then go into startup mode when that is at T-minus 1 minute, and the ground computers will hand over control of the countdown to the onboard computers on Falcon 9, and we're gonna get ready to go.
Indeed. So with that, in these last few minutes, we'll answer a few more of your questions. I've seen two in chat that I'll quickly answer. I guess I lost it, but someone was asking if SpaceX has any plans for another drone ship to increase their cadence for next year. And the answer to that is no. As we were talking about earlier in the stream, their solution for this is going to be an increase in the number of RTLS missions. And then that leads to another question that we have of would RTLS missions increase cadence? And the answer to that is yes. SpaceX is currently constrained mostly by drone ship availability, where the drone ships can only be turned around or they can only land on each drone ship every 10 or so days. I guess a little like 8 or 9 days, somewhere in there. So whenever they have 2 launches back to back from Slick 40, that covers both drone ships. So enabling them to launch more will be having some return back to land. So definitely should see even more launches next year. All right, here's an interesting question. Austin is asking, what is the fastest launch time between a Falcon Heavy and a Falcon 9? Does this have a chance to set a record? And I presume here he's not talking from the same pad, he's just talking in general.
Yeah, so boy, I don't want to jinx it, but this will be the fastest turn-on time basically between any 2 SpaceX launches. It will be the shortest time between any SpaceX launch. Even if you count Falcon 9 to Falcon 9, it will still be the fastest. In this case, it is between a Falcon Heavy and a Falcon 9, and also from the Cape, from the same launch area, as you will. The previous record was about 4 hours between a Vandenberg launch and a Cape launch. So it was a record, but it didn't feel as a record as it is today, right? This feels more like a record. But again, problem with that is that once you start talking about these records about to happen that haven't happened yet, then they may not happen. So I don't want to jinx it. It could happen, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right, but with that,
So knock on
Max
wood.
unfortunately has to leave us to witness this beautiful launch. Max, thank you for bringing us these views and enjoy it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'll see you on the other side.
All right, so we are about 3 minutes and 45 seconds away. Just going through a bit more support. We have a $10 super chat from Grave Lighton. A double header tonight. Indeed. Let's hope, as Alex was saying, as soon as we start talking about it, they often scrub. But let's hope that this will set the record for shortest time between 2 SpaceX launches. Apocalypse Cow, another very regular here on stream, gifted 10 Red Team memberships. And then Craig looks like he got something from the store and said thanks for everything in 2023. Let's see, what did he get? One of our patches for OFD2. Well, thanks for buying stuff from shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Angry American gifted a Red Team membership. And then Maggie with the super chat. I love watching launches growing up in Orlando. My cousin is a colonel in the Space Force working on satellites. Got me into your streams. A question. When is the next launch with astronauts? Alex, when are we expecting the next launch with astronauts from the Cape?
Yeah, so the next launch is from LC-39A. It is going to be Axiom 3, and it's going to be January 17th. It's also going to be an RTLS, so definitely worth to go down there again if you can. And also, I
Yeah,
have heard already Stage 1 lux load is complete, so the first stage is now fully loaded with propellants.
excellent. And Axiom 3 was going to be the first launch from Slick 40 with that new crew axis arm and tower that you can see on the left of the vehicle. But that has since been moved to Launch Complex 39A, likely due to just readiness reasons, but we're not 100% sure why that got moved.
Mostly due to the schedule, how it panned out. It will be a whole different discussion if we were to talk about it. And Stage 2 lux load is complete. Now the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with propellants and ready to go. We'll see if I'm knocking on wood and crossing my fingers and everything. Come on, we're gonna go for that record.
Yeah, in just over 90 seconds from now. And now we can see a similar large vent happening from the transporter rector. As Alex was saying, liquid oxygen load is complete on stage 2, so just like when they finished filling RP1, they're purging those lines ahead of liftoff. And now you can see more venting from the TE. Also, you can notice how it's just kind of staying right by the vehicle, highlighting that it's not very windy out there tonight, which is always a plus for those wanting to watch. Just 1 minute away from launch from now, and Falcon 9 should now be in startup, so it is now in control of its own launch countdown.
Indeed.
Let's see, any second now we should be getting a go from the launch director, and that would be the final go that SpaceX needs for launch. At this point, up until
We are
T
go
minus,
for launch.
and we are go for launch. So at this point, humans have 20 seconds left where they can abort the launch. After T minus 10 seconds, all aborts are handled by the vehicle. Now 20 seconds. So 15 seconds now, watch the base of the vehicle. If we're lucky, we'll see that green flash in 10 seconds, which will be the start of the Merlin engines. That's 2 seconds away. And there we have liftoff. I'll be quiet now while we hear the beautiful sound. Right now, the vehicle will be passing through max Q. It looks like we've had a successful liftoff, so despite Alex and I's thoughts that we may curse it, we did not jinx it, and that was the shortest time between two SpaceX launches ever. So coming up
Indeed.
in just about a minute now, or a little under a minute, we will have 3 events back to back. The first will be shutdown of those 9 engines that you can see on your screen right now. And something to look out for, especially in this view, is it's done in a staggered fashion. So they shut down in pairs, ending with the center engine. So you can watch them kind of shut down, similar to how Starship shut down 5 engines at a time, except for since there are way fewer engines, it's slightly less noticeable. Shortly after that, the 2 stages will separate, and then the second stage will be ignited, and it will start its approximately 6-minute long burn to the initial parking orbit. And there we have main engine cutoff.
It's Miko.
And there's stage 2. Now coming up in about 20 seconds, the 2 fairing halves will be deployed. And on the right, pay attention to that ring stiffener that just fell away. That is there to dampen any vibrations in the engine nozzle during launch. And that view, by the way, that we had before was from Lon. He's out there just streaming from his phone. So it's pretty awesome that you're able to just see that view from, the side of the road. I need to see a launch. And here we have on the right, both of those payload fairing halves just fell away from the vehicle.
We kind of have a video. How about seeing a launch from the Cape?
Yeah.
Look at that. Is that a moon jellyfish kind of thing? Because we're close to full moon, right?
Yeah, I think we are. We'll have to ask Max, but that certainly looks like a lunar jellyfish to me.
That's nice.
Yeah, so now we're coming up on another few series of events. As you would know if you own our Launch Entry Landing t-shirt or mug or anything else that it comes on, this booster will do 2 more burns today. So the first burn will be at T plus 6 minutes and 9 seconds, and that will be the ignition of the single center engine followed by 2 outer engines, and that will help slow down the booster ahead of re-entry. And that's called the entry burn. And then later, at about T plus 8 minutes and 4 seconds, the landing burn will start. So that will be the single center E9 engine that will ignite and hopefully touch this booster down on a shortfall of Gravitas. Let's see, looking through chat for some questions while we wait for these events to happen. Here's a quick one for you, Alex. Do we think that Slick 40 and Boca will receive the tower cladding that 39A has?
I don't really know. It kind of depends on whether it needs it or not. The Starship Tower at Boca Chica, for example, hasn't got the whole cladding yet, and it doesn't look like they need it completely. Like maybe they just need it on the base, but not the whole tower.
Yeah. I mean, I personally hope
We're still
that
tracking
it's
the second stage. That's awesome.
Yeah, Max is killing it as always. Yeah. They completely lost my train of thought. I really hope that at Slick 40 they end up installing some of the cladding like we see on LC39A. I definitely think aesthetically it adds to the look of the pad. And I think 39A is probably the best looking pad at the Cape.
Or even just painting it. Anyways,
Yeah.
we're coming up on that entry burn. We should be coming up in just a few seconds. Maybe Max will be able to capture it.
Yep.
Now
So
putting
again,
any
this
pressure on you,
is
Max, if you're listening.
so again here
There we
you
go.
will see,
Look at that. You
there
got it.
is. So that is 3 engines burning right now. And this burn is expected to last about 20 seconds, 23 seconds it looks like. And there's the shutdown. And and looks like it's about to fall over the horizon. And there's SpaceX's view of it. And near you can kind of see the line of the 3 engines that are firing. And there's shutdown on SpaceX's view.
And there's still there that second stage. Because the second
Max
stage
is-
still burns for another minute and a half until I think it's 8:30 or something like that. Around that time at least.
T plus 8
Not
minutes and
exactly.
40 seconds.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, and this is the first burn of the second stage tonight, as on all of these Starlink Group 6 missions, the second stage conducts 2 burns. The first is this long one, and then they coast for about 45 minutes before they ignite the Merlin engine again for a very short amount of time. It's generally on the order of a second, and that's just to circularize the orbit before deploying the satellites into the roughly 284 by 295 kilometer orbit inclined 43 degrees, if I remember correctly.
So this view is actually from Lon apparently. I thought that was Max, but that was
That's
Lon.
Lon?
And it was already
Holy cow.
getting through almost all the way to the horizon. You can see some of the palm trees. But yeah, coming up now on the landing burn in just a few seconds.
Wow, Lon, that was amazing. Yeah, as Alex was saying, the landing burn should be starting any second now. There it is. And this is again just that single center engine that will attempt to land on a Shortfall or Gravitas. And it looks like there's the drone ship view. I love the blue that the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and bang, there we go. SpaceX makes it look easy. That is their 185th consecutive landing and 259th total landing. Let's see. And then there is Seco. And there's Doss's favorite view of an empty launch pad following a successful start to a launch. Wow, that was amazing. I can't believe Lon tracked that with an iPhone that whole time.
Yeah, it
He
was
says in the back
amazing.
channel, my arms are tired.
Well, we maybe have to have Lon more often tracking launches.
Yeah. And then Max also killed it with the tracking today. I don't know if we have Max back yet. Do we?
I'm right here, Trevor.
There we go. How was it, Max?
That was beautiful. There's a lot of fog coming in over the Kennedy Space Center right now, and there's a healthy layer of fog covering the grass and over the water. But in a way, and you can also probably see it on the feed, it's blocking about half the rocket now. It's pretty obscuring. But at liftoff, the fog seemed to add a pretty unique feel to the atmosphere around here as the fog carried out some of the light from, of course, the 9 Merlin 1D engines as well. It was absolutely full, and I think because of how the air is right now in terms of it being stagnant, cold, and thick, it sounded a bit different than usual in that we felt it more than we heard it first. I mean, before the rumble even got to us, I was already hearing the panels on the VAB screaming and screeching away, and then the sound came and hit us in waves. It was spectacular.
Yeah, it definitely seemed, even on stream, a little quieter than usual today. I was curious if that was just microphone settings or actually the
No,
launch
it,
itself.
it was for sure a bit quieter than usual, but that's all down to how the atmosphere is behaving tonight. But still very, very loud nonetheless.
Yeah, that was awesome. Um, let's see. I think Sawyer has a shot that he's editing real quick that we'll wait around for, because we always love to see our phenomenal photographers what they manage to shoot. So with that, we'll do a few more questions and go through a bit of support. Sam became a PadRad member. Michael became a Red Team member. Troy gifted 10 Red Team memberships. And then Daleen became a Red Team, or gifted 1 Red Team membership. Thank you all for your guys' support. All right.
I guess I could finally say that they have broken the record for fastest turnaround time. I mean, not turnaround time, more like shortest time between any SpaceX launches. And that record now stands at 2 hours, 54 minutes, and 40 seconds, beating 4 hours, 11 minutes, and 20 seconds, which was the previous record. And all from the same launch area. It's from the Cape. Because the previous one was from Vandenberg, one launch, and then the other was a Cape launch. This time around, it is pretty much from the same location, just by a few miles away in distance.
Yeah, it
Good
is.
counting, right? It's just a rounding error.
Yeah, it's crazy what SpaceX is doing. I saw a really good Sawyer level joke in chat from Altar Studios. Guys, the reason B1058 was lost because it forgot to read the instructions. um, let's see. Here's from James. They're asking, how does SpaceX fit so many Starlink satellites in the fairing?
Stacking them, it's really it's a design that basically takes into account the size of the fairing. You see a lot of other satellites being boxy and things like that. They basically made these to just try to fit as much as they can on that fairing by being flat. They can pack more. That was a really really clever design, and now a lot of people are trying to copy it.
Yeah, it is really brilliant when you compare it to it, because not only can you stack so many, but also the payload deploy mechanism that they have is just so simple. It's just like two rods that fall away and you spin the second stage. Um,
Hmm.
they did a really good job with that. But with that, I think we have Sawyer's uh, photo. It turned out absolutely gorgeous. Um, there it is.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, and Sawyer said this is just the quick edit, so make sure you look at Sawyer's Twitter. Um, I think it's at the NASA man for more photos and everything later. But great job, Sawyer. Thank you for going out there. But with that, I think that's going to conclude our live stream for tonight. I want to thank everyone who's been on. Lon, he's not on comms, but he brought us some amazing shots from his iPhone, which was awesome. And then Max brought us a lot of other shots. Max, thank you for being on.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on, gentlemen. It's a pleasure as always being able to share this with everybody. It really only just hit me now that this is probably the last stream that we are going to do from Florida in 2023, which kind of hits me kind of hard. I just want to say a really quick thank you to everyone who's been tuning in this year. It's been an eventful year, one can say, and this is the most fitting way to close out a very, very, very eventful 2023 with a doubleheader and breaking the first time in between launches since the Gemini program in one day. It's a pleasure as always talking to everybody and showing everyone what the Space Coast what the Space Coast can do and what it's about. And I will catch you guys next time.
Yeah, I can't believe the year is over for the Cape, but don't worry, we'll be back soon from the Cape. There are plenty of SpaceX launches already planned.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Then, as always, Alex, you're always here helping us out. Thank you very much for bringing us your amazing commentary and stats and everything that you do for us.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. And as you mentioned, there's going to be tons and tons of more launches out of the Cape next year that we were going to cover. All thanks to Max, by the way, because you took up the job. Because you basically entered NSF this year. And so that was a really wonderful job that you are able to do for us. And I really appreciate it. Because you're fantastic. I mean, you show it all today, and your photos are amazing. So yeah, I
I,
do that with
I
Jack. I also had to do it with you. You're wonderful.
thank you, Alex. I know we had a bit of trouble with the Falcon Heavy stream earlier, and
Mm.
I want to extend my most sincere apologies to everyone who saw that. Um, but 2023 is going to be tame by comparison to what is on the docket for 2024. It's going to be pretty epic. So I hope everyone finds it in them to stick around and see what next year is going to be all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that'll
And
start.
today,
Go ahead,
well,
Alex.
I was gonna close out my comment saying that this is the final Cape stream, but it is not the last stream from NSF probably, because tomorrow we're gonna have that potential booster 10 static fire test. As I mentioned at the sort of at the beginning, more or less, of the stream, we have an overpressure notice out from the from Starbase. We have there a lot of activity going on, already preparing the pad for that test. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that whenever we go live. I don't know if I'm gonna be on commentary for that. Maybe it's others. I may be a bit on the lines for that one. But if I appear, good. And if I don't, then Happy New Year to everyone, and see you in 2024. Thanks.
Yeah, that was actually the segue I was going to use, and that all that excitement for next year will start tomorrow with that stream, but you stole it from me. But then in the background, Jay has been flicking the switches, pulling the levers, making sure the stream runs smoothly. So make sure to thanks Jay as well. But with that, as Alex said, we will see you guys all tomorrow morning. I've been your host, Trevor, and I look forward to an amazing 2024, because what a year 2023 has been. Thanks, everyone.
And here we go.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside SPE off. Bring in SPE off.
It's orange!
R45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Declination.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You read? We don't need any more of these.